Hi everyone, welcome in our channel. Today we're going to talk about how to import in the United States. Before we go ahead, remember to subscribe to our channel, leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed the video. Moving forward with our topic, today we're going to talk about how to import in the United States. Remember, this is a disclaimer. The purpose of this video is to just share general information, so your case may be different from other cases. So there are always some, let's say, specific instructions or regulations or policies that may apply to your specific case. So don't take this video as the only source of truth. So when we think about importing in the US, we can think about two main ways. It's the import for personal use that we can talk about, or we can talk about the commercial import for commercial use. So let me give you an example. When you import in the US, let's say that I have my company in Hong Kong, my fulfillment center in Hong Kong, and I'm shipping to a customer into the United States. The customer, unless you declare yourself as importer record, is the importer. So your customer purchased from you outside the United States a product and they are receiving it for personal use. That's an import for personal use products. And the final, let's say, importer records is your customer. Then when you actually import in bulk, let's say in the US for commercial use, which means that you're going to import in the US in bulk, you're going to store in a warehouse and then you're going to sell those goods locally, that's an import, a commercial import. And this means you're going to be the importer records. Now, of course, when you are the importer records, it means that you have to have an entity in the United States, which means a company. But you can also import in the United States by being a non-resident individual or company. So what you have to do in this case, you have to hire custom brokers. So custom brokers are, let's say, entitled people or companies that take the responsibility on your behalf to import in the United States, and they're actually licensed by the custom of the United States, basically. So you can still import in the US without having an entity there, as long as you hire a custom broker, which is going to be the importer records on your behalf. Generally, there are some fees associated to that because they simply take the responsibility of your import, and you never know what's going to happen, right? So remember, two types of import: commercial import or personal use import. Personal use import, it means that you're shipping most likely cross-border and a final customer in the importer records, they purchase directly from you. If you import in a warehouse, for example, or local in the US from China because you want to resell locally, which means that once your customer places the order, the goods are already in the US. In that case, you're importing for commercial purposes, which means to resell or, for any business in general. And if we talk about commercial import, then you need to think about the custom broker or having an entity in the US, because someone will need to declare and be the importer of records, declare the goods, file the custom, let's say, paperwork and so on. Then you should also think about how to import, like how do you ship to the US? If you're manufactured in China, you most likely either put your goods on a plane or you put your goods on a vessel, which means on a boat. So you ship either via ocean freight or air freight. There are different documentation associated to those two different types of transportations, mode of transportation, and the clearance is also kind of different. So for example, if you're shipping with air freight, you need an airway bill as a paperwork for the custom clearance. If you're shipping with ocean freight, you need the bill of lading. But overall, the documents you should have on hand when importing the United States, especially for formal clearance, you need to have commercial invoices, packing list, you have to have the airway bill or the bill of lading. It depends how you're shipping to the US, but also if it's a formal clearance, you need a custom bond. So what is a custom bond? A custom bond generally is going to be taken care by your custom broker, because most likely If you're above the threshold, and which means you go for formal custom clearance, then you most likely gonna hire a broker because they exactly know what they have to do. And you may have a lot of time, waste a lot of time, have a lot of complexity if you custom clear goods yourself. So you should basically go for a custom broker, and the custom broker will just take the custom bond, which is like a little contract between the customs and importer records. It's like a guarantee that you're gonna pay for duties and taxes. So you also need the custom bond before actually clearing the goods, together with commercial invoice, airway bill or bill of lading, packing list, or any other license that you may need. So you have to make sure that before shipping you have those documents on hand, or you're sure that you're gonna have those documents on hand by the time the goods arrive at the port. And we have the third point, it's the type of clearance. It's like formal clearance, informal clearance. What is that? So informal clearance is the custom clearance for goods that for declared values, or goods declared at a value that is below 2,500 USD. So anything below this value is informal clearance, which means easy. You simply need to pay duties and taxes, and it's way easy to clear goods. If it's above 2,500, it means you have to pay duties and taxes, of course, but also you need to hire most likely a custom broker because it's a formal clearance. There's more paperwork, it's more complex, so you most likely go for a custom broker. It means a little bit more of a complexity there. But then you also have the entry minimis, which is section 321. It's basically made for e-commerce or any low value parcel. So basically, if you ship cross-border, which means you're shipping from Hong Kong to China, and you're shipping for a value that is below goods worth of with the value below 800 USD, you don't pay duties, you don't pay taxes. So it can be for personal use as long as it's below 800, and above 800 but below 2,500 you have the informal clearance. Above 2,500 you have the formal clearance. So from 0 to 800 you don't pay duties and taxes, and you have an informal clearance. From 800 to 2,500 you pay duties and taxes, but it's still an informal clearance. Above 2,500 it's a formal clearance, and you need a custom broker, and you pay also duties and taxes. Fourth thing, remember there are some restrictions, prohibitions, but also quotas. What do I mean by that? I mean that generally there are some restrictions, which means that you can only import if you have a license, for example, because it's a restricted good. Then you have prohibitions, things that you cannot really import no matter what, narcotics, for example. And then you have quotas, which means that there is maximum amount of products or type of goods that you can import in the US. And this means that if you have two competitors and they are filling in all quotas for that specific products or material, then you can't import anything because quotas are already full, whoever is there that is importing. However, generally, for example, for clothes or textile materials, it's always a formal entry. So that's what I was saying at the beginning, the disclaimer. Just make sure you don't take this video as generally as the only source of truth, because there may be some exceptions to the case. And the example is for the clothes and any textile material, where you always go for formal clearance, even if it's above 2,500 USD the clear value. So generally, for, let's say, quotas on personal import, generally there are no quotas on personal imports, so you can buy whatever you want and as many as you want. Only on commercial imports you have quotas, which means a limited amount of goods that you can import or material you can import. But there are the only quota and restriction, let's say, on quotas, on the amount of products you can import in the US for personal use. The only quotas that you have is for tailor-made suit made in Hong Kong, from Hong Kong. Can you imagine that? You can buy whatever you want, that is of course not subject to prohibition or restrictions, for personal use, except for suits made in Hong Kong, tailor-made suits. There are quotas even for personal uses. So now, to finalize a little bit our discussion, first of all, understand who's the importer records. If you're shipping cross-border or you're importing in the US and you're the importer records, you need a custom broker, a warehouse, and so on. Then you have to understand also what type of clearance, if it's formal or informal, based on the value of the goods, and also if you're eligible for the minimis, the entry minimis threshold of 800 USD, where you don't pay duties and taxes. But you also need to understand if your products are subject to restrictions, quotas, or prohibitions. Overall, just make sure that for duties and taxes and declare value, you do it right. For example, generally the declared value where you're going to pay duties and taxes is the FOB, free on board, which means basically the intrinsic value of the product, how much you paid for it, and it's on that value that you're going to pay duties and taxes. But for example, for Australia, you pay duties and taxes on the FOB, let's say the purchase value, the purchase value of the product, but also on the shipping and also on the insurance. So just be careful on that and understand what's the correct harmonized code, because based on that the tariff is going to apply. So the duties is based on the harmonized code. So there's a video as well where we explain the harmonized code. You can check it out, but just make sure it's correct so you paid right duties, especially if it's above 800 USD. Thanks for watching. This is a little summary of how to import in the US. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, remember to subscribe to our channel, leave a like and a comment. Thanks again, see you in the next one.